Hello. Since my last video, I've had a few questions and that sort of thing about how to set up different sorts of specific auras. I kind of hope my last videos would be generic enough that people would take them and sort of run with it, but I guess I'm just not a very good teacher, so I'll try and be a little more specific. First question I had was how I set up my Mind Blast aura specifically. So you can see Mind Blast is off cooldown, and it just sits here. Maybe I can get some shadow orbs by running around here. There we go. You can see on the aura itself, it shows my count of shadow orbs. As soon as I cast Mind Blast, it goes away. And that's about the end of that. It's a pretty straightforward aura to set up. I'm going to start by just making an icon. I'll call this O Priest MB. Give it some load conditions. So I'm going to say if you're a priest, spect shadow. That's fine. Let's say in combat too. And then we can come over to the display tab, and I'm going to say use the Mind Blast icon. And I'm going to set the text to now to just space. So it won't have anything in the bottom corner for now. We've got a basic aura set up. I'm going to set up the trigger for it. If you come under type and switch it to status, there are two different ways of doing it. One is to use cooldown progress spell. And so if this ability is put on cooldown, that causes this trigger to fire up. And then you can do things like use %P in the display area here. And you can see in the tooltip it says that it shows the remaining time of an ability's cooldown. So I'm going to do that for now. And let's get a slightly better font. Switch it to this and make it nice and large. So if I put Mind Blast on cooldown, you can see... Trigger. Suppose I should actually type in the ability I'm interested in. Mind Blast. There we go. So if I put Mind Blast on cooldown, pops up, it's got a little timer showing how long is left. And then when Mind Blast is off cooldown, it disappears. Now you can see I have the opposite behavior, and I got that just by checking the inverse option. So I could put Mind Blast on cooldown, it goes away, Mind Blast comes off cooldown, and it's going to appear again. Needless to say, our %P shows the cooldown remaining, but when Mind Blast is not on cooldown, that has no value. And so that's why you'd want that set to space. What I've done in mine is use %C, which lets me write a custom Lua function. I'm just going to paste it in here so I don't typo. So it's just a simple two-line function. What it does is it says grab the aura, shadow orb, on the player, which is this here, and select the fourth item from what that returns, which is the stat count. And then just return it as a string, or if I don't have the shadow orb buff on me, this will all return nil, in which case it's going to return a blank space. So it's a pretty simple function. You can see that's working as advertised. Another way to do the exact same thing is instead of using spell cooldown progress, you could use action usable. And so this works basically as the name makes you think it would work. If an action is usable, it triggers. In this case, the spell is Mind Blast. And if the action is not usable, it untriggers. Simple as that. There is this option here, require valid target. And that's why I use the action usable trigger instead of spell cooldown progress. You can see here, I'm in combat and I've got a valid target for Mind Blast. That's all well and good, but maybe I'm targeting someone friendly. That's no longer something I can use, so it disappears. But otherwise it works the same way. Mind Blast is on cooldown, it's disappeared, now it's usable, and up it pops. Simple as that. The only other thing left to do would be to add a couple of animations. In my case, I use grow and shrink. So watch, when I put this on cooldown, it fades out with a little animation, and then it'll fade back in when I have it come up in one. There it is. So hopefully that was easy enough to follow. I'm going to do something similar with another character now. All right, so someone asked how you could set up sort of Mind Blast style tracking for Starsurge on a Boomkin. I normally pay my druid as Resto. I'm still leveling it up, but I made a Moonkin spec just to get the basic mechanic working. So Starsurge is a lot like Mind Blast. You can cast it, and it's going to go on cooldown for quite some time. But druids have a talent called Shooting Stars, which when they deal damage with Moonfire or Insect Swarm, it has a chance to proc an ability called Shooting Stars that resets the cooldown and makes the cast time instant. So what I'm going to do is set up sort of a two-layered aura. The first one will be just for Starsurge off cooldown, and the second one will be for this Shooting Stars proc that makes it instant. And I'll sort of layer them up so that it makes my icon more fancy when I can have an instant cast Starsurge. So I'm gonna bring up weak auras, and I'm just gonna start with an icon. I'll call this Moonkin, Starsurge, sure. And I'll give it some load options. So I'm gonna say Druid spec balance, and let's say in combat. I'm gonna pick an icon, Starsurge. I'll toss it over here. And I'm going to get rid of the text, so this is going to function pretty much just like my Mind Blast option. So I'm going to come under trigger, choose status, action usable, and I'm going to type in Starsurge, and I'm going to have the required valid target option set. So you can see if I get into combat here, so I can cast Starsurge, goes away, and see if we can't get some dots up and get that proc to happen to bring it off cooldown. There we go, so it's off cooldown and my icon has appeared again. So that's all well and good, but it can also come off cooldown naturally. You just wait out the timer. 3, 2, 1, there we go. And that's all well and good, but when it's instant, maybe I want this to be fancier. So what I'm going to do is make a second aura. Let's use texture, why not? We'll call this Moonkin SSP for Shooting Stars proc. And I guess we'll set some load conditions, so be Druid spec balance in combat. I'm going to click this little arrow here to toggle on the display of my Shooting Stars proc. You can see because this is underneath it, it displays underneath. And I'm going to just choose a custom graphic. Let's see. Maybe something from Power Auras. Icons? Let's see what we got here. Let's use this. Yeah, that looks all right. Maybe I'll make these a little bit bigger. Let's say 250 by 250. And we'll give it a color. Something like that. And we'll switch its blend mode to glow. Sure. It's a bit ugly, but it's noticeable. So what I want to have happen is when Starsurge is off cooldown, just display this. And then when I have a shooting stars proc, I want this snowflake thing to show up behind it. So all I have to do is come into triggers, and shooting stars puts a buff called shooting stars, and that's what makes your Starsurge instant. That's a player buff, and sure, own only, why not? And that'll do it. So now, I can get in combat. So Starsurge is off cooldown. I'm gonna cast Starsurge there, so it's on cooldown, it's disappeared. Get some dots on everything. So we had a Starsurge proc, you can see it there. That makes my instant Starsurge. Ooh, why am I missing? There we go. Well, I think that about covers that.